tell me what's going on in the state of Utah. You have a front row seat to all of this. We just got the Olympics, which is incredible. Confirmed just a few days ago from us recording this. It feels like Utah has a lot of momentum right now.
It's an amazing time right now. Like, that sounds really cliche, but it really is. There is this synergy that it's almost palpable, and just with so many exciting developments between hockey and the potential for Major League Baseball, between the 2034 Olympics, with companies and expansions and just heavy investment from the state on different economic development projects, infrastructure. Like, Natalie Gochner summed it up best. We've always been a small state, and the people that look at the demographics, they can kind of figure out the different sizes of states. So now Utah, since the 2020 census, is considered a medium-sized state.
Really?
So we're I think like 31st. So we're kind of in the middle of the pack nationwide, but that technically puts us in the medium-sized state category. But you can kind of feel that, we're not just a small state anymore. We always like to say that we punch above our weight, but I think we're punching at about our weight right now. We're not this little underdog anymore. I think we have some muscle on the bones, and it's fun to see everything happening. So,
what's your job like when politics are at play? Like, obviously, you had your boss running for still running for re-election, and obviously there's politics is crazy in this day and age. What is your job like in that environment?
It gets tricky, but I think my boss, so Governor Cox, does a really good job of keeping the campaign separate from day-to-day business. And so I think those of us who are passionate about the state and care about the politics of the state, it's our tendency to kind of step up, speak up, try to be a voice for good. As it relates to like the election, and sometimes you hear things that aren't true, and it's just kind of frustrating, but we just try to keep our head above the water, try to take the high road. Like I said, just be a force for good. So, for me, it's been easy. I love my boss. He really has a big heart, and it's been fun to watch him lead the state for the past 4 years. And moving into these next 4 years, I think we have some big things on the agenda. But we try not to get bent out of shape too much. We just try to be positive, do our best, and let the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, his primary opponent is still hasn't conceded, which is fascinating.
Yeah, it is. He's a passionate guy, and we'll see how that ends. But at the end of the day, the people have spoken, and I know this administration is looking forward to just moving forward.
Sure. And then we recently lost Alan Matheson.
We did.
Who was running the Point of the Mountain thing, which we had him on here not too long ago, maybe a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Like, what is the Point of the Mountain going to look like now? Has that been replaced?
Yeah, so I serve on that board, and the development itself is just right where we want it to be. We've signed contracts. We've got everything ready. So to Alan's credit, he's left us in a really good spot, and we wish him the best at Rio Tinto. A big loss for us. At the same time, though, now we have this opportunity to go hire somebody and to really kind of take it up to that next level. So we're excited. We're in that hiring process now. So so far we have a lot of applications, and we haven't hired anybody yet. We're beginning that interview process soon. We do have an interim director, and he's just kind of helping with the day-to-day operations, but we'll go through that robust process and find the right man or woman, and continue to put all of our force behind that project. It really is generational.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's probably the most important project in Utah. We have an interesting one in downtown, and what Ryan is trying to do now that we have a hockey team and an NBA team, and having to remodel the Delta Center, as well as try to create some sort of downtown entertainment district. What do you know about that? Like, how are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling really optimistic. Ryan and his team will work closely with Salt Lake City. I know they've already begun those negotiations. Salt Lake City for a long time has wanted a facelift, in the downtown area. And now we have this capital coming from Ryan, and we have this synergy coming from Major League Sports. And it's just really exciting to see kind of what it can become. And then you kind of sprinkle in the Olympics on top of that, and with some of the investment that will happen. And just, we want to be ready for 2034. And I think this is just kind of the beginning. This is the catalyst to get us there. So it's really exciting. And then not just the sports district, but then you kind of look at what Mayor Mendenhall's doing, what Salt Lake City's doing with housing and with density and with a lot of the projects happening in Salt Lake. It just feels like it's transformed into a different place. But it's exciting. Like, a lot of big cities are stagnant, but Salt Lake City certainly is not stagnant. We're seeing a lot of growth, a lot of investment, and so.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Do you think we'll have a baseball team by the time the Olympics are here?
I mean, I'm not one to speculate too much, but I'm going to speculate and say yes. So I think the chances are really good.
Yeah.
I think Utah's poised for Major League Baseball. We're baseball fanatics. All the surveys, all the polling suggests that Utah would support Major League Baseball in a big way. And then it's not just the team, but it's actually what's happening in that area. It's called the Power District.
Mm-hmm.
So the Power District and the Utah State Fair Park have kind of joined forces to create a new authority to really transform that area, which historically has been, it's just kind of struggled to grow, to develop, safety issues. They're going to transform that into a world-class destination to complement what's happening downtown. In this Power District area, we're going to see new commercial, new residential, walkability. Think of San Antonio and the Riverwalk.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the river right there. It's just going to be a great complement to the state.
Yeah, I love the vision for the Power District. I think it's so cool. What about Sundance? What's going on there?
Yeah, we're really excited kind of for this next iteration of Sundance, because it's been a phenomenal partnership over the past, many years. So we've submitted our application. There were more than a dozen cities that had submitted applications. So we're one of the finalists. So we are setting up one of our site tours. I think Sundance will look a little different in terms of, it may not just be focused on one particular area, but it may span multiple areas. Think, Wasatch Front and Wasatch Back.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of gives the organization more room to grow, kind of helps spread the people a little more. If anything, I think we're in growth mode here. And so, knock on wood, but we're really optimistic that we can, renew that contract, that they select Utah again, and moving forward, anticipate a great partnership.
Yeah, I can't imagine Sundance Film Festival being anywhere else other than Utah, given that Sundance is here and it was started here.
Yeah,
It's literally here.
We were the incubator for this great event, and it would feel weird to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
so.
it's odd. But yeah, that's cool. That's good to know that it's progressing in that manner. How should Utah companies, entrepreneurs, leaders, business owners prepare for the Olympics? It's 10 years away, but why is it important now, and what should they be doing to prepare for that?
We're getting that question a lot. And so there's a group the governor's put together. It's called the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission, and it's made up of 15 different members by statute. We have the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Speaker Schultz. We have President Stuart Adams on there, the governor. I get a vice chair of that group. And then we have numerous other stakeholders who, are kind of forward-looking to what's next in Utah. So earlier this year, in fact, at the end of 2023, we sat down with the governor and the president and the speaker, and we said, hey, leadership, what's the priority? As this group looks to address or tackle certain issues, what do you want us to focus on?
Mm-hmm.
And they came up with two things that I thought were really interesting. They said, we need a good plan for the 2034 Olympics. Let's start that process now. So that's the first thing. And then we would like to really hone in on our targeted industries, or our, economic clusters. And so we have 5 kind of major industries in the state. And so we're working with those associations to put together, more detailed plans like, hey, you're a targeted industry, good things are happening in the sector, now what? And so we'll be working with you and with, the tech community. We'll be working with aerospace, with manufacturing, financial services, et cetera. So that's exciting. But going back to the Olympics, we've had our first couple of meetings with this group. We brought in Fraser Bullock to come address the group to kind of share best practices.
He's the greatest.
He is the greatest. And just the knowledge he has, the can-do attitude.
I love Fraser.
It's amazing. And we're inviting Steve Starks this fall. He is the
another good man.
Well, he's okay. I claim him most days. And so Steve is the governor's Olympic advisor. And so he's going to come address the group this fall. And then we have a staff, and we're working with various stakeholders to start to build out some preliminary visioning. What do we want to be in terms of infrastructure, in terms of business development, in terms of just reputation? How do we, make sure that the 2034 Olympics are just as spectacular as they were in 2020 and 2002?
I was talking to Mike Levitt about it. He held a recent event. I think he put out a book or something.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to him at that event, and he was saying that the 2002 Olympics, he was able to recruit so many companies using that. Like, hey, come sit in the governor's box. Come do this. In fact, it was he brought a lot of huge companies here,
right,
using that tactic. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and kudos to him. He really had that foresight to understand what Utah could become in terms of our economic prowess, right? Utah at the time, I think, was, as we talked about, small states, right? Industry was pretty singular. I think the state leaders were hoping to diversify the economy. Now, fast forward, 32 years in 2034, we're a mature economy. Natalie Gochner says we're an elite economy. We're very diversified in terms of the different sectors. So now it's going to be, how do we not just recruit, but how do we get additional companies that are the right companies? Like, how do we fill in the gaps? If we have some big marbles in the jar, what's the sand that we need to fill that jar with to kind of keep our ecosystem thriving?
How do you get Utah County and Salt Lake County to work together?
It's a great question. I think they're starting to more and more. I know Utah County has been more proactive in terms of their economic development. I think the Point of the Mountain naturally will pull the two counties together. It's kind of like on the Wasatch back. For years, we've had Park City, we've had Heber Valley, sleepy little Heber Valley, that suddenly is growing, right?
Growing like crazy.
Growing like crazy. And I think the 2002 Olympics helped kind of catalyze that growth. And then right where the county line is, near Jordanelle, there's this amazing development called Mayflower. Mayflower is bringing in world-class hotels, additional ski resort, commercial opportunities. And so that's kind of forced Summit and Wasatch counties to work together better than they ever have. Now, if you kind of liken that to the Point of the Mountain, I mean, this is like you said, a generational opportunity, right? Probably the most important project in our state on the books right now. So how do we get the Utah County and Salt Lake County and kind of use that as the synergistic tool to help them? I think there's a willingness on both sides, though, and as we kind of fill in a lot of the developable ground, I think that line will start to blur a little bit, and we'll realize that, hey, we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. So,
if you could wave a magic wand, what would you want to see that would improve Utah's economy, Utah's quality of life?
It's funny. I threw out some ideas as we did the visioning for the 2034 Olympics. One of the things that I threw out there, like if I had a magic wand, would be more state parks. We have 46 state parks. I think in the past decade, we've added one or two kind of small ones, but we have 67% of our open space or our lands are public. Could we not partner with BLM like we do in so many other cases and, increase the number of state parks significantly? We have a growing population. Parks could be anywhere in the Wasatch Front or rural Utah, so it's not geographic specific. I think that really helps with the quality of life piece, with trails, with recreation, outdoor activities that we all love. So that's one idea. If I had another, wave of the wand, it's just our workforce. We have talented, individuals, but we're growing in a way that We just need more engineers. We need more STEM graduates.
Mm-hmm.
There are thousands of jobs that are not going, you know, they're not being filled because there's just not enough workers. And then you heard about BYU's big announcement yesterday.
That's huge. It's so cool with their new medical school.
I just think what that's going to do, not just to the state, but to Provo specifically, and to our life sciences, like that's exactly what we want as a state, is more investment into those types of fields. So kudos to BYU.
How is the state and how are you thinking about AI and its future, and how is it being integrated already into like state systems and stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Margaret Bussey, who's our director of the Department of Commerce, is really tackling this issue from the state level. And it's not like we're recruiting AI companies, but we are interacting with a handful of them who have some interest in Utah. But it's more like, how do we shape AI to be a complementary part of our economy? And so Margaret set up a working group that's addressing a lot of the key policies. It's kind of an unknown to a state, right? So how do we make sure that we're getting the best of AI while at the same time, creating mechanisms to protect the state against harmful AI? And so she's doing a kick butt job. It's fun to watch, kind of that process. And then the legislature has a task force focused on AI. I know Representative Jordan Tusher and others are really focused on, getting policy right to enable AI to do its thing in the right way here in the state. And so, a lot of conversations are happening between our office, the Department of Commerce, the legislature, the business community. We just want to make sure, like, government's not the solution to all problems. But I think what we can do is remove, or create policy or remove barriers that maybe make it so we're not business friendly.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at right now.
It seems like we need like triple or quadruple or 100 times more power in order for AI to really we don't have enough power in the country right now for everything there's not enough power just for the AI, let alone everything else. Is there any discussion about that in the state, about like increasing like power stations or anything like that?
Oh, you just hit the nail on the head. Like, we're having these conversations in real time, actively. It feels like weekly, working closely with Rocky Mountain Power, but then realizing that it's not just Rocky Mountain that's the sole or the exclusive provider of energy, but that there are other groups too, private companies that are innovating and creating power sources. We're working with some nuclear companies. We're looking at different types of options. Recently, a small delegation of DNR folks from our energy office and a couple of us from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity took an exploration trip to Iceland.
Really?
Iceland is the geothermal capital of the world. And Clint, maybe you knew this. I certainly didn't, but Utah is the third largest geothermal state in the country.
Really?
We're sitting on
idea.
an abundance of geothermal, but we're not using it. And so we went to understand, how are they using it safely, effectively, economically? How can we unleash the power of geothermal here in Utah so that we can really augment that energy source? You talked about we need more as a country, but we actually really need more as a state too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's all I care about, actually.
Yeah. That's right. So we're excited. We think that, we're just kind of on the cutting edge, so to speak, of unleashing a lot of different power sources. It is a real issue for us right now. We're looking at all of the above, whether it's geothermal, whether it's nuclear, whether it's traditional, So we're excited to hopefully make some progress. But I think the governor, state leaders, this is on their minds. They're talking about it actively, and hopefully we can come up with some solutions.
Yeah. Does the fact that the federal government owns so much of Utah land play a role here?
It really does. And the federal government, they have different offices. Our delegation, our teams at the state level are working hand in hand with those federal partners. And sometimes the results are positive. Other times they're really frustrating. Sometimes a project that should take 10 months takes 10 years. And so, we're beating the drum. I know there's some different lawsuits to kind of expedite things, and we'll see what happens with this next election. I think, elections have consequences in terms of public lands and energy policy. And so we're banging on the door as loud as we can.
And it does seem like whenever there's a Republican president, they give us back Bears ears. And whenever there's a Democrat president, they take it.
Yeah.
And I assume you're thinking maybe that same thing would happen around this. It would probably be more difficult under a Democratic president. Is that right? Or
yeah,
I don't.
Generally speaking, the Democrat administrations make it harder to access, energy, mining, etc. But I think under a Republican administration, typically they're more favorable in terms of letting the states manage the lands, and so we'll see what happens.
How about rural Utah? How are they feeling about the growth of, the Wasatch Front? And are they happy to be excluded from it? Are they excluded from it? Or are they nervous about it getting down to where they are?
I think it's a combination of all of those factors. So during COVID, we saw a lot of people leave the Wasatch Front and kind of flee toward those areas.
Well, they're the most beautiful areas.
They're the most beautiful. Everybody wants to live in rural Utah. Yeah. What are some of the blockades? One of them is internet. So if you run a company, if you can work anywhere in the state, but you don't have good internet, it's going to be really hard. Something we're really proud of is we recently, just last week, in fact, announced a $318 million grant that we're receiving from the federal government through our broadband office to infuse capital into those underserved communities where broadband is a bit spotty or really where they don't have high quality internet. So we're going to be working with the different rural communities to make sure that they have the last mile of broadband connectivity, which really is going to kind of flatten the playing field so that everybody has a chance. All the rural communities have a chance to kind of grow in the way that they want to grow. And it's interesting, Clint, because we've done this tour this year. It's called the 24 and 24, visiting 24 rural counties, trying to understand from the mayors, the commissioners, the chambers of commerce, what are your impediments to growth? Do you want to grow? What's your feelings toward the Wasatch Front? Who do you want to be when you grow up, so to speak? And I think the answers vary. Some communities are just happy to be small town, underdeveloped. We don't want to grow, and we respect that as a state. Other small communities in rural Utah say, we really want to grow. We have an issue with housing or with broadband or with transportation or whatever it might be. So kind of on a case-by-case basis, we're working with those communities to help develop plans and strategies to help them grow where they want to grow. Again, not forcing anything upon them. So I think the answers kind of varied according to the community. Nobody wants to be the Wasatch Front, but what the communities want is for opportunities for their kids to come back and to have employment.
Yeah.
And so it's a kind of a tricky balance, but we're really tuned in. We have some different grant programs to support the economic development strategies. It's not a top-down approach where we say, hey, rural community A, you have to do A, B, and C. Instead, we say, hey, community A, what are your priorities? How can we help you get there? They'll submit a plan to our office. We'll review it, and we'll determine that it's a fair use of funds. And then we'll give them the grant, and then not just say, here's the grant money, good luck, but we'll actually follow up and work with them to make sure that, if it's a community center, if it's a business park, if it's a training program, things that community needs. And finally, I would just say that it's so fun to watch kind of the needs vary from Logan all the way down to Hurricane. Everybody's so different, and that's the beauty of it, is it's not a one-size-fits-all, but every community wants to grow in the way that they want to grow. So
I love that you said it correctly. Hurricane.
That's right.
That's how we say it around here. Finally, and this is maybe the most important thing for our audience and for our listeners, since we last had you on, you've launched the Startup State initiative out of your office, Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And the website's incredible. It has also, is it startup.utah.gov?
It is. You got it.
Yeah, startup.utah.gov. Everyone check that out in terms of all the various resources and stuff. But what's the plan with that? Like, how do you grow that? And I know you're doing some pitch competitions and stuff, and you've recently hired someone to kind of be the director of that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so let's just kind of talk about the vision. So Governor Cox was really focused on not just the external recruitment of companies, and by the way, about 2/3 of any type of growth of a company in Utah, it's happening organically. And so it's the existing companies just expanding in a big way. So we're really excited to focus on our own first. And then as we bring in additional companies, that will be on a very selective basis. But then knowing that we have this group of amazing companies, how do we help them grow? And then how do we inspire that next generation of entrepreneurs? Because if we can grow organically, that's truly where the magic happens. And so we're trying to inspire entrepreneurs across the state. We did launch this website. The website bundles all of the resources that an entrepreneur would need. So where do I go to register a company? How do I create a marketing plan? Where do I obtain financing? Like, I hear of all these different loans. Tell me about them. And so the website, it's all inclusive in terms of providing that content that somebody would need. It's kind of a one-stop shop. Now, these resources are out there in abundance. Like the SBA has their resources, or the universities. And so now it's just a question of kind of bundling them together, so you don't have to go to 30 different websites. You can go to business.utah.gov is our website. And this one, it's startup.utah.gov. And it's a one-stop shop to kind of inspire entrepreneurs. With that said, we are doing more with our university partners. We're supporting different pitch competitions. We hired our first ever full-time director, Tim Cooley. We had Alicia Hart join us, and she kind of set the program up. She moved to Ohio. So her husband's doing a PhD at The Ohio State, as she likes to say. And so we had a need to hire somebody, and she was just on a part-time basis. So we said, now let's really invest. Let's hire somebody on a full-time basis. Tim Cooley has this rich background in entrepreneurship.
Known him for years. He's
venture
a great
capital.
Yeah,
great guy.
Great guy.
And he's asking questions that we've needed to ask. He's kind of putting us through a rigorous process of why are we doing this? How do we do this better? So I think the end product's going to be even better. So we're just so excited about this initiative. People have probably seen the billboards up and down I-15 that say, start something here. We want to be not just the startup state, but the startup leader of the United States.
Yeah, startup capital of the world, man.
Yeah.
I love that branding. I love everything about it. And I think it's true. I really do think Utah is the entrepreneur capital of the world. I think we have more entrepreneurs per capita than anywhere else in the world.
We really do. People love to take risks. They love to take chances to succeed. And we have all the right ingredients. So
yeah. Thanks for coming in, my friend.
Yeah, it's great to catch up with you.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
You too.
Thanks, man.